Welcome to Home Designer 2018 Kitchen Webinar. My name is Danny and I will be presenting for you today. We also have Philip with us on chat, so if you have any questions throughout today's presentation, we will be available to answer those. Today we'll be working in Home Designer Professional. However, most of the presentation you are able to do in Interior Suite and Architectural. If there's a tool or feature that is simply just for professional, I'll be sure to point that out. For today's presentation, we'll be going over walls and dimensioning, placing windows and doors, designing custom cabinetry, as well as a custom island. We'll create a custom ceiling design, and we'll go over placing accessories and lighting, as well as material control, materials list, and then we'll have some additional time at the end for some more question and answers. This is the welcome screen that you'll see when you first open up any of our programs. Over to the left here, you'll have the option to open up a new plan, a plan you've previously been working on. And to the right, you'll find Getting Started Resources, as well as an announcement section, which is new with our 2018 release. I'm actually going to close out of this because I already have a floor plan open. And as you can see here, you'll see a grid. This is basically a blank canvas and what you'll start with before you start any of your designs. And up here, I would like to point out a few things before we get started. This is your main toolbar here with the straight wall tool, cabinets, stairs, roofs, etc. When you select on one of these parent tools, a child tool palette will appear here on the left-hand side with some additional options. You can also find these tools underneath the Build tab, and you can select various tools from this drop-down menu. I'm just going to select the straight exterior wall, and I'm going to click and drag. We don't need to worry about dimensioning just yet, but we do need to connect all of our walls in order for the space to be defined as a room. Now, one quick tip I'm going to point out here is that my cursor is still across. That means that the straight exterior wall tool is still selected. So I'm going to press the spacebar on my keyboard, which will release that object. And I'm going to zoom out with the scroll wheel on my mouse. So once you connect all of your walls, a couple automatic features will automatically appear. The program will automatically generate your square footage, give you exterior dimensions, and these dash green lines are your roof planes. So the program automatically generates a roof for you as well. Now let's get into 3D to see what this looks like. You can do this by selecting this camera, and then we'll want to do a perspective full overview. So the program will automatically generate the roof as well as a foundation. And today we're just working in our kitchen space, so we don't really need to worry about these two features of the house. You can rotate it around if you would like. So I'm going to close out of this, and I would like to hide these roof planes so the space is a little bit cleaner and easier to work with. And you can do this by going to the Tools tab and selecting Display Options. The Layer Display Options dialog box will give you the ability to turn on and off the display of objects in your plan. If we select the letter R on our keyboard, this will drop us down to the roof section. And what I'd like to do is remove the roof baselines and the roof planes. So as you can see, there is a red plus mark showing that it is being used for planes. I'm just going to deselect the check mark here in the display column, as well as here in baselines. I'm going to select OK. And now this feature is just hidden in our floor plan view, just cleaning up the space here a little bit. Let's start out by dimensioning our straight exterior walls. We can start with this top wall right here and select this parallel dimension. We'll modify this to 21 feet 5 inches. All of our Home Designer programs think in inches, so we don't need to indicate the inch marker, just the foot marker. And with Home Designer Pro, you have 3 options. You can dimension it so it moves the left end, both ends, or the right. Let's select the left end and hit enter on our keyboard. Working our way down, we are going to select this wall and kind of just work in a clockwise direction. This will be 13 feet, 7.5 inches. The dimension for this is up here, so 2 feet, 3 inches. And like I said, we are just working our way down this one. And as you can see here, I selected the perpendicular dimension to this wall, and let's change this to 3 feet, 4 inches. And then select the parallel wall, and you can change this to 8 feet, 5 inches. So there's two ways that you can dimension. You can dimension with the parallel dimension and the parallel wall, or the perpendicular dimension. And if something doesn't line up, you can always go back and change it. However, let's just keep working around here. We're going to select this wall up here, and we're going to change this dimension here to 7 feet, 4 inches. And then also, with that same wall selected, let's change this dimension to 8 feet, 3 inches. This one will be 15 feet, 1 inch. Seven feet, 6.5 inches. And then this one is good at 13 feet, 7.5 inches. Now let's get into a 3D perspective to see what we've created so far. We can use our full camera tool by selecting this camera and just clicking and dragging. This will give you the idea as if you're standing in the room. You can use the scroll wheel on your mouse to pan as well as to click and drag. And there's a couple things I'd like to point out. The program will automatically place hardwood floors and a base molding around your design. And we will have the ability to customize these as needed. So if we stay in this 3D perspective, we can select the room and go down to our Edit toolbar. And this is where you'll find the Open Object specification box. This room specification will be opened, and underneath the general panel we have the ability to define the space. And let's go ahead and define it as a kitchen. If you don't find the room type that you're looking for, you can always customize it for your own room name. Underneath the structure panel is where you'll have the ability to modify the ceiling height and floor height. You also have the option to remove the ceiling over this room if you'd like it to follow the roof planes. Today we will be working with a flat ceiling, so I'm just going to leave that selected. Going to the moldings panel, I would like to deselect using floor default. The base molding will still be there, but I would like to add a crown molding. So if we select this Add New, this will bring us to our library browser, and I will explain this in greater detail a little bit later in our presentation. But when you purchase the software, you can install core content, and this is just the generic content that comes with the software. And then you have the option to download bonus and manufactured content from our website. For today's crown molding, we're just going to use the generic crown molding that we have here, and you can navigate through the menu on the left or through the images on the right. I'm going to select CA21 and select OK. Let's modify that height and width to 3 inches by 3 inches. In this room specification is where you'll be able to define your wall covering if you had one for your design. This panel is where you would be able to add as well as modify the height of that covering. You can also change the fill style and materials from your room specification. We'll be changing our materials in a different way, so I'm just going to select OK. And now you can see that the crown molding has been added. And since we defined this space as a kitchen, tile has automatically been placed in. So what I'd like to do is close out of this view, And let's take a full camera view of this back wall. We're going to place our first door. So we can do this by going up to the door icon here on the main menu and just placing that in here. Now we're going to want to make a few modifications. So if we select the door, we can go down to our Edit toolbar, and you can quickly make modifications from these tools down here. But for more details, you can select Open Object, and we can change the door style. And let's modify that and change that to glass. And we want to modify the width here as well to 72 inches. When you press Tab, it'll automatically update the image here on the right hand side. Underneath the Options tab is where you'll have the ability to define whether it is a single door or a double door. The doors could be shown open or closed. The left can swing only, or the right. It can swing both directions, or they can swing from center. I'm going to deselect these and just do both doors swing. We want them to swing one way. You can modify the casing as well as the lights. You can add an arch to this if you would like. Today we're just working with the standard doors. We're not adding an arch, but these are here for further customization. You can modify the hardware as well as the framing and materials. We will modify the materials in a different manner here shortly. And you can also modify the label and object information, which is new with the 2018 version. I'm going to select OK, and now our door has been updated. With this door still selected, let's go down to our Edit toolbar, and there's these two arrows facing each other. This is our Center Objects tool. If we select that, and we have this dashed line going perpendicular through this back wall, it's saying that we want to center it along this wall, and once you click, it'll center those French doors. The next thing we'll do is place our first window. I'm going to select the window up here and just click and drop it in. A shortcut to opening up this window specification box is to right-click and then select Open Object. We are going to make a few modifications. The first thing we're going to do is modify the width to be 26 inches. And you want to change the height to 76 inches. Underneath the casing panel, you'll have the ability to determine whether or not you'd like to use interior and exterior casing. You can add a sill or remove a sill. We're going to actually remove the interior sill. You can modify the sash as well as the frame. And for the lights, we do want to make sure that this is 3 across and 2 vertical. You can change the shape and have it match the roof. You can add an arch if you would like, same as the doorway or doors. You can add treatments, shutters, as well as modify materials, labels, and object information. As of right now, I'm just going to select OK and place this object. The next thing I'd like to do is copy and reflect this to the other side. And this tool is only available in Home Designer Pro. So I'm going to go down here to the Edit toolbar and select Copy this object. When you select that, another Edit toolbar will appear, and we can select Reflect About. Like I said, this is only available in Home Designer Pro, and it's a quick way to place multiple objects in a room, especially if you're working with the same design for a certain feature like a window or a door. And we want to copy this again. You can also just press Control C on your keyboard and then Control V and just click and drop it in. If you want, you can use the arrow keys on your keyboard, and this is a quick way to just move objects throughout the plan. And if we copy and reflect this to the other side, now all of our windows have been placed along this back wall. Each time, I would like to point out that you use the arrow keys on your keyboard, it moves it 1 inch. So that's just something to keep in mind. Now that we have this wall completed, we can close out of this camera view, get back into our floor plan view, And it appears that our doors swing open. I would like them to swing on the outside, so if we just grab these arrows, you can just click and drag it to the other side, and then the doors will swing outward. Now that we've completed this wall, let's go ahead and place our interior walls. We can go up to our straight exterior wall tool and select straight interior wall, and just click and drag along these two walls. This area here will be our pantry, and this will be our family room. I'm going to deselect the interior wall tool, and I'm going to go up to our dimensions, and I want to place two interior dimensions. I'm just going to click and drag, and we want to modify these. So this first wall is 5 feet, and then this wall is just 10 feet. We can remove these dimensions to clear up the space. And now we can place our doorway. So underneath the door icon here, the second option in the child tool palette is a doorway. I'm just going to click and drop that in. Now if we select the doorway, we can double click on it, and that's just a shortcut to opening up the interior door specification box. We're going to make one minor adjustment. We're just going to change that width to 33 inches. I'm going to select OK. Like I previously mentioned, this is only available in Pro, but we're going to copy and reflect this to the other side of the wall. With that door still selected, I would like to copy the object. You can right click and do copy paste, and then we can paste it along this wall as well. Just going to bump it over. Now let's get into a 3D perspective to see what we have created so far. We have our two doorways here, our doorway to our pantry, as well as our outdoor space, and our windows for our dining room area. So if we close out of this view, now let's go ahead and get into a wall elevation view. We are going to be designing this wall right here, and this is where our cabinets and our stove are going to be. And I'd like to give you a quick idea of what that will look like. So this is what the end product will look like, and it kind of gives you an idea before we start working. So I'm going to close out of this and get into a wall elevation. And this is just underneath the orthographic tool right here. I'm just going to click and drag it along this wall. One of the great things about the wall elevation tool is that you can become very precise with your dimensions and placing objects. So if we select this doorway, we can move it in 1 inch so that it is not bumped up right against the wall. The first thing we're going to want to do is place a standard base cabinet. So we can grab this cabinet tool and just click and drop. Now my cabinet probably looks a little different than yours. I have my hardware set as a default, as well as my countertop edge molding. However, if we get in here and customize it, I'll show you how you can modify those as well. So let's just double click on this object to open up the cabinet specification box. The first thing we're going to do is I'd like to point out that you can modify the height and the width here. We're going to leave this so it's 36 inches high by 24, and over here, working our way down, we're actually going to remove the backsplash. So I'm just going to put in 0, and you can also customize the toe kick as you would like, so you can have flat sides or not, a flat back or not, or closed toe. We're going to leave it with flat sides and a flat back. Underneath box construction, you have the ability to determine whether or not the cabinet will be framed or frameless, with the traditional overlay or full overlay or inset. We're going to leave ours frameless, full overlay for today. In the front panel is where you'll have the ability to modify the front of the cabinet. So I'm going to deselect Use Default. You can modify it from this menu here or from the picture and the image that is created here on the right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select Door Auto Right, and we want to change this to a drawer. So in Home Designer Pro, you have the ability to change the item type as well as our other programs, and I'm just going to change this to drawer. And one special feature about Home Designer Pro is the ability to split this component of the base cabinet horizontal or vertical. I'm going to select split horizontal. Then it automatically creates an additional drawer for me. And if we go up here to vertical layout parent and select this, you will see a button here that says equalize, and it will automatically set each of these drawers to be of equal heights. So far that cabinet is done. The next thing I'd like to do is go to door and drawer, and this is where you're going to modify that cabinet hardware. So this long pull horizontal is from a bonus catalog called Cabinet Hardware, and you can get in here and customize it as needed. We're going to leave everything as is for this. Molding is where you're going to add your countertop edge molding. It'll be the same process as adding that crown molding that we did earlier in today's presentation. And you can modify the fill style, materials, as well as label and object information. I'm going to select OK, and we're going to place, it'll update that first cabinet. The next thing we're going to do is we're just going to copy and paste this cabinet right next to it. So I'm going to go to copy, and I'm just going to paste it right here. This cabinet will also be 24 or 36 by 24, but let's go ahead and open this up. And going into the front panel here, we're going to modify these doors so that they're 2 double doors. And you can delete from the menu up here. And with this bottom drawer selected, we can use this drop-down menu to change it to door double. The next thing I'm going to do is just copy this cabinet. I'm going to press Control C on my keyboard and then Control V. We could just paste it right here. We're going to open this up and make a few adjustments. The first thing we're going to do is modify the width to 12 inches. And then in the front panel, we're going to remove these top 2 drawers. And we're going to leave this with the pull-out drawer. So we're going to go down to door and drawer and modify where that handle is placed. So we want it to be in vertical position, and we're just going to do 2 inches from the top. Select OK, and then let's bump it up along these other cabinets. In Home Designer Pro, you have the ability to group select objects and edit them. This is a quick way to make any adjustments you have as far as moving, or if you're editing a bunch of cabinets at once. It's definitely a time saver. So I did this by just holding down the Control key and selecting each cabinet, and then I'm just going to bump it up right over here. The next thing we'd like to do is place our stove, and I'm going to open up our library browser, and that is these 3 books right here on the top. And I have, so like I previously mentioned, there's the core catalogs, which is the generic content, and then there's the bonus and manufacturer catalogs, which you can download from our website. I'll show you how to do that later in today's presentation. But you can also create a user catalog, and the user catalog is something if you are using the same materials, textures, furnishings, appliances throughout your design. It's a great way to just store it in one location so you can quickly reference them. And I have done this for today's presentation. So underneath appliances here, I have my stove, and I'm just going to click and drop that in. We also would like to place our hood. And to modify the hood, we just click on it and let's drag it to the top here. And we want this to be centered above the stove. So we'll use the Center Objects tool and just make sure that it is centered right here. The next thing we'll do is copy and reflect these 3 cabinets to the other side. I'm holding down the Control key to select all 3 cabinets, and then I'm going to select the copy and reflect about here. We'll reflect it to the other side of the stove. Now if we group select everything, we can center it along this wall. And finally place our wall cabinets. Now I've already created these because I showed you how to quickly and easily dimension cabinets, so you know how to make these modifications. And I'm just going to copy and reflect this to the other side. The next thing I'd like to do is place our custom backsplash. Now the custom backsplash tool is only available in Home Designer Pro and Home Designer Architectural. We're just going to click and drop the backsplash and it'll automatically place it for you. Now I'm just going to close out of this view and let's get into a 3D view so it gives us a different perspective. And now this space has been created. And we can move these doorways in a little bit if you would like. The next thing I'd like to do is close out of this view and start working on the area right here. This is where our oven as well as our microwave and an additional sink will be. So let me go ahead and give you a sneak peek as to what that will look like. So this is what we'll be creating today. I'm going to show you how to create an architectural block as well as placing appliances in base cabinets or full height cabinets. I'm going to close out of this. Let's get into a full camera view to design this wall here. You can also zoom out a little bit so we have a better perspective. I'm going to use our standard base cabinet. I'm just going to click and drop it in here. Let's make a few modifications to this. We're going to remove the backsplash to 0, and then we're going to modify the front panel here, and we're just going to change this to a drawer and then split it horizontally twice. That way we have 4 drawers, and then we can equalize it so we have 4 equal drawers for this base cabinet. If we copy this cabinet, we can paste the second cabinet right here, and this is where our microwave will be. So what I'm going to do is we are going to make this a little bit wider. So let's change its width to 27 inches. And then let's modify the front of this cabinet and let's remove these drawers. In Home Designer Pro, you have the ability under item type to define this as an appliance space. So with that as an appliance, we're going to get into our specify appliance door and drawer option here, and I'm going to get in my user catalog and just select the large microwave, built-in microwave that I have here, and then I'm going to press OK. We will need to place one more cabinet, well actually a few more cabinets, but this one is going to be our sink. So if we open this up, we will need it to be 36 inches, which will be enough room for a double sink. And then in the front panel, we are going to want to remove each of these drawers and then change this one to a double door. Now, obviously if there's a sink, there needs to be room for plumbing, so what I'm going to do is specify the shelving. And this option is only available in Home Designer Pro to manually specify the shelving. I'm going to change that to 0. In our other programs, you can choose to have shelving or have no shelving at all. Now let's select OK. And let's go ahead and open up our library browser. You can do this by selecting Control L on your keyboard. And I am going to just type in double sink here. A ton of options will come up and you can find the one that would be best suited for you. I'm just going to select this one here, and you can just click and drop it in. The next thing we'll need is a faucet. Now let's close out of this library browser and zoom in here. Let's center this over the sink. And then if we select the faucet as well as the cabinet, we can create an architectural block. And an architectural block is a great way to group a number of items or objects that you might be using for future plans. So if you have a specific kitchen design you're constantly working with or a layout to a living room, anything of that sort, you can create an architectural block and then save it to your user catalog. So if we go down here to our edit toolbar, it is this red and blue square. So make architectural block. Then this all becomes grouped together as one object. As you can see, you can move it, and that's all going to be one component. And then I'm going to add this to the library. When we do this, it'll come up as untitled and add it to your user catalog. So I'm just going to rename this by right-clicking, and I'm just going to type in kitchen sink. It's available for future use. I'm going to close out of this, and let's zoom out here and bump that over. Another way to modify the width of a cabinet is just selecting it, and you can simply just click and drag. So if you know how many inches it needs to be, that's another quick way to dimension out your cabinets. I'm just going to group select these and bump them over, and then I'm going to copy and paste this to the other side. Let's change this to just be 27 inches, and now we're going to place our full height cabinet. So I'm going to go to the cabinet tool and just place a full height cabinet. Let's make a few modifications to this, but first let's open up our library browser. Once again, I'm pressing Ctrl L on my keyboard, just a quick shortcut, and then I'm going to go into my kitchen. And another way to place an appliance is to just click and drop a cabinet. So that's another way you can just click and drop in that double oven. We will make a few modifications though, so let's open up this cabinet. Let's add a molding here. We want this to be the same molding that we have throughout our kitchen. So I'm going to change this to 3 inches by 3 inches. And if we zoom in here, you can see that the molding is preventing these doors from being open. So we do want to create maybe a -2-inch offset. And then now the doors can be freely opened. If we go to the front panel, we can change these doors to drawers. And then so this has been updated. However, we do need to update the cabinet hardware. So the cabinet hardware does not need to be updated through that specification box. You can always just apply it by just clicking and dropping it as well. Now let's go ahead and place our windows. I'm just going to click and drop this in. And you can move the windows with the arrow keys on your keyboard. And remember, each time you select or push the arrow key, it will be 1 inch. The next thing I'd like to do is place our backsplash. So for this wall, we're going to do a custom backsplash. I'm going to go to the cabinet tool and select that, and we can just click and drag. Once you release that, it'll automatically place that backsplash. And now this space is done. So if we zoom out here, we can see how far we've come. So we're working our way around the kitchen here. The next area that we have is our refrigerator area. So I'm going to close out of this view and then give you a perspective as to what that will look like. So this is where our pantry will be, as well as our refrigerator. So I'm just going to close out of this, and then we can get into a wall elevation view. I'm just going to click and drag. Now the first thing that we'll want to do is place our refrigerator. I've already showed you how to create an architectural block, and my refrigerator is saved as an architectural block in my user catalog. So I'm just going to get in here and quickly place that. However, what we will want to do is place a soffit above the top. So I can close out of this and use our soffit tool here. And you can see it automatically added the molding, so we can just click and drag it over so it automatically aligns. Next we'll want to do is place our base cabinet. We'll remove the backsplash and then just change these to drawers. Let's just equalize that. And then copy and paste that right here. Let's change this width to this one to be about 21 inches. If we open up our library browser here, we can place our barn door here, and then I'm just going to click and drag it over. And now this side of our wall is complete. Bump it over just a little bit more. Here we go. Now this side of the wall is complete. If we close out of this, we can see here that this wasn't placed along the wall. So if we zoom in, we can bump it along the wall. And then another thing, this dashed line, this is our soffit. So if we get into a 3D view, you can see that the soffit only covers half of the fridge. We will want to make this wider so it aligns with the rest of the fridge. There we go. Now this is complete and this side is complete. Let's go ahead and place our island. So getting back into the floor plan view, we can remove this if we would like. It cleans up the space a little bit. I would like to show you what our island will look like complete. This is the front of the island, and this is what the back of the island will look like, as well as with our ceiling design. So I'm going to close out of these, and I am going to place our island. I have the island saved as an architectural block, so I'm going to open up my library, and I am going to place our island. Let's go ahead and place our island. We'll move it here in a second. I just want to show you the front of the island. Okay. So let's go ahead, and the first thing that we'll need to do is make it not an architectural block. So down here you can explode the architectural block, making it each individual components again. And we will need to do this in order to add our dishwasher. I'm just going to click and drop that in, as well as our sink. So this is our island sink that I have here, and I'm just going to drop it here on this main sink. I'm going to rotate our camera view here so we have a better idea of what we're working with. And then I want to place our faucet here as well. Let's go ahead and center our faucet along the sink here. And now the front of our island is complete. So if we close out of this, what we can do is just group select this, and then we'll want to center this. So let's center it along this cabinet, these two cabinets right here, and then in front of the stove. Perfect. Now getting back into a 3D view, we're going to want to add some stools. So if we open up our library and get into our decor, we have these 3 bar stools. And then rotating this up a little bit, we can move them in. Okay, now to polish off this island, I would like to change the material of the back of it to be wood. So under my materials, I do have this natural wood, and I'm just going to apply it to all 3 cabinets. And now our island is complete. Next on our list is our ceiling design right here. So if we get into our floor plan view, I am going to go to our soffit tool, and I'm just going to place it along the edge right here. If we zoom in, it gives you a better idea of what you're working with. And when you place an object on top of one another, essentially, it's going to select the biggest one. So if you just press Tab on your keyboard, it'll take you to that next available object, which in this case is the soffit. And I'm going to open that soffit up, and we're going to make a few changes. So we're going to modify the width to be 39 inches, 2 inches tall, and then 78 inches in depth. We want to place it under the ceiling and add a crown molding. And then let's center it over our island here. We want to center both horizontally and vertically. And then let's get into a 3D view and let's change the material of that. So I am going to use our material eyedropper. And this is a great tool because it allows you to select the material of, let's say, the wood here and apply it to another object. So I'm going to apply it to the ceiling design here. And then I would like to place our lighting. So I'm going to open up our library. And then I'm just going to move it around here. Now, as you can see, we have a couple adjustments to make. So the first thing that we'll want to do is let's get in here, and once again, we want to center them both ways. Okay. So as we can see, the light is pretty bright. So if we get into our preferences and go down to render, we can deselect use enhanced lighting, select OK, and then it makes it so that the light isn't quite so bright. Now what I would like to do is update our materials. So I'm going to open up the library once again, and we are going to change our materials for first the backsplash. Now I have this selected, and you can see that my mouse has turned into a spray can. And down here in the edit toolbar, you have a couple options. You have the option to paint a component of an object, to paint the entire object, to paint all of those objects in that room, all of the objects, all of those identical objects in the floor, as well as the plan. So I'm going to select the room, and I want to change the backsplash here to that. Now as you can see, it automatically updated this wall as well as this wall. And we're going to do the same for a countertop. We want it to be the room. I'm just going to apply it to this countertop here as well as the edge molding. The flooring, we will want to update that, as well as the wall paint. So if we did floor, it'll do the inside of those rooms as well. Now let's go ahead and make the molding the same color as the cabinets. So I'm going to use the material eyedropper, select the color of that cabinet, and apply it to that molding. And as you can see, everything has been updated. We can zoom around here, and even our windows and doors have been updated as well. So closing out of this full camera view, I'm going to place our dining room table and center along that wall here. Now we can go ahead and place our decor. If we zoom in here, we can bump it up along this wall. And in this full camera view, you'll see that it has been updated. And then I want to change our backdrop. So you can just search backdrop and literally select any one that you would like. The one I'd like to use is the Glassy Sunset, and you just click and drop it in, and then it's applied. It's super simple. Now that our design is pretty much complete, let's go ahead and close out of this, and I would like to show you the lighting. So I'm going to zoom out enough so we can see here, and then go into Build, Electrical, and select Light. I'm just going to place the lights, and we can copy these two and reflect them to the other side. as well as these two. Now that we've placed our lighting, let's go ahead and place our outlets. So getting back into our electrical here, we have this auto place outlets. You could just click and drop those in, and that will automatically place them to, since we define this space as a kitchen, to industry standards. And another thing we'll want to do is place our switches. So if, for instance, if we placed a switch here and here, and along this wall as well, we will need to create an electrical circuit. So you simply just click and drag it. And when you connect two different switches, it'll automatically make it a three-way switch. And you can do that throughout your plan. As we wrap up today's presentation, I would like to show you two more things. The first thing is the ability to send a plan to a layout sheet in Home Designer Pro. You can do this by simply going to File, Send a Layout. This dialog box is simply saying no layout view or file was found. Would you like to create a new one? Yes, we would. You have the ability to modify the send position, send options, as well as the scale. I'm going to select OK. This is saying it's too large to fit on the layout page. Would you like to continue? Yes, I would. And you can modify the size of these as needed. And you can also move your plan around. And over here on the right, you'll have the ability to enter in the project name, the sheet title, the designer, and so forth in this title block. So I'm going to close out of this. This is asking if we want to save it. We don't. So the second thing that I'd like to show you is calculating your materials list. You can do this by going to Tools, Materials List, Calculate Materials for all floors. As you scroll down, this will show you the materials needed for roofing, insulation, windows, cabinets, and so forth. And we do have a free trial version of the software. We also offer a 30-day satisfaction guarantee, so you have a full 30 days to explore the program to see if it's going to be a good fit for you. We offer upgrade discounts, so if you're watching this and you have an older version of the software, just give us a call and we'll be able to provide you with that upgrade discount information. If you need help getting started, we have training videos, help articles, as well as a user forum, which is a great way to connect with other users who are using the program. And if you just want to talk to someone in sales to find the right product, feel free to give us a call. We're more than happy to help you choose a product. Thank you so much for attending. We'll be on for a few more minutes if you have any additional questions. Have a great day.